Before we start, I want you to hit that red subscribe button so you never miss out on any of our videos. Bridgerton is a typical Regency romance, with a few bulletproof tropes working in its favour. Bridgerton is based on romance veteran Julia Quinn's epic 8-part romance novel series of the same name. That might sound daunting, but for the romance genre, a series of that size is fairly common. The series, like most historical romances, sets itself within a loose version of the Regency period, that particular moment of pre-industrial 19th century Britain when London aristocracy was rich and bored enough to revolve around an annual season of nightly partisan events. The era was named after George IV, who at the time was Prince acting as the regent or proxy ruler for his father George III, who had succumbed to his famous madness. Prinny was mainly known for caring more about high society or the haute ton than boring government concerns, and the Regency period likewise borrowed his character traits of frivolous vanity. London's social functions had a complex etiquette and were usually held with the tacit purpose of matchmaking eligible men and women. This ritual, as the show explains to us early on, was known as the marriage mart, and as ridiculous as it may seem, the stakes were very high. So many romance novels have been set in this period that Regencies form their own subgenre. Usually, however, the mainstream media only bothers with the Regency when it's adapting a Jane Austen novel. Puzzling, since she only wrote 6 of them, and annoying since they were all set far from London, where all the action of the era was centred.
I'm incapable of making my own choices.
There is nothing you cannot do.
Indeed, Regency London is the sort of heady, scandal-ripe setting that pairs perfectly with the sourness of Shondaland storytelling. The moment the title card for the first episode, A Diamond of the First Water, appeared, I felt the thrill of recognition known to anyone who's grown up with shelves full of Regencies filled with such idiomatic references. The phrase conjured up the insular coded vernacular of the Regency novel, lords in deerskin trousers and Hessian boots that judged the ton through quizzing glasses and wielded intricate put-downs at the famous Gentleman Club Whites, where the layers in a man's cravat and the elegance with which he drove his curricle determined where he fell along the narrow spectrum of fashionable gentility, whether he was a true Corinthian or a mere fop. Women in the empire-waisted sprigged muslin dresses would exchange delicious innuendo-filled barbs with reformed rakes over lemonade at the famous assembly room at Almack's, and Prinny himself would occasionally appear to create havoc like a deranged muppet. I could not wait.
Most beautiful of women is something entirely apart, and it is with my sincerest apologies, I must say it took the prince coming along for me to realize I did not want Miss Bridgerton to only be my friend, I wanted her to be my wife.
Bridgerton is a historical gossip girl, with even less depth, as well as a deeply disturbing rape scene. Throughout Bridgerton, characters use secrets to exert control over their social positions. That's nothing new for such romances or for Shondaland Ver. But what is interesting is how frequently the show frames these scenarios through the perspective of the non-consenting party who's been duped due to a kept secret. Simon's secret threatens his entire relationship with Daphne, the Featheringtons as a household are at the mercy of their father's secret gambling addiction, and Marina tries in desperation to find someone who will marry her before a scandal around her own secrets breaks out and destroys her reputation, and his along with her. Yet, despite its attempts at raising issues of consent and control and how they operate in society, Bridgerton rarely moves below the surface. The show fails to consider its potent class differences beyond perfunctory nods, and for all its attention to diversifying cast, it doesn't actually diversify its focus on characters or explore what interesting perspectives and conflicts its diverse cast might bring to the story. Half-hearted attempts to inject queer characters into the mix come off as nearly homophobic rather than tantalizing. Simon's best friend, a boxer, is essentially just a device, at times a literal punching bag, to remind Simon of his working-class roots within the black community and for other characters to react to. A working-class opera singer and would-be courtesan gets some rote speeches about her in life, as does one servant whose only real role is to deliver a hilarious monologue about how none of the Bridgerton servants have any time to moonlight as Lady Whistledown because they're too busy being, well, servants. Marina's storyline offers the show its best chance for delving into these areas, but instead it's Marina's arc that epitomizes how shallow Bridgerton ultimately feels. Instead of fueling an interesting exploration of how the aristocracy might react to a poor, clever woman of colour like her, she gets turned into a device for drama between the Bridgertons and Featheringtons. She's used to centre Featherington's own issues with class, money and race. Then she's used to raise questions of informed consent surrounding her attempts to marry well. And that's all for today, guys. I hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another amazing video from us.